let's dive into your strengths and let's make them the focus. Let's stop trying
Yeah.
to fix all the things you think are wrong with you. Let's really dive into your strengths. And also, let's look at and learn that, like, this part of you, your loudness, your brashness, your honesty, like, this can be really disconcerting for people. And also, it is a breath of fresh air for other people over
Right.
here. Like,
Yeah.
this is exactly what they need. It has taken me decades to even get to the point where it's like, oh, I can be disappointing. Like, somebody else can be disappointed in me, and that doesn't make me a disappointing person. Like, they can be disappointed, and that is totally fine. And would I rather disappoint someone else because I'm being true to myself, or do I want to disappoint myself and let
Yeah.
myself down just to potentially get favor from someone else? Being able to notice and reconnect with the things that light me up, the things that bring me joy, the things that I crave and want to do more of outside of whether that is monetarily productive, outside of whether that is like beneficial for the people that I'm around, like just because I want to and feel, and those feelings too.
Hey y'all, I'm Lillian Reese Brown, and welcome to Making Meaning. Making Meaning is a podcast by the Cohere Collective, here to help guide you along your path to make meaning in a way that makes sense for you. And this week, I am joined by Christina Slaback. Christina is a life and business coach and the host of the Clear and On Purpose podcast. Christina began her work when she realized, as a wife and a mother, that she was starting to feel overwhelmed and resentful of all of the work and care that she was doing in her life, and then very quickly realized that's not the kind of life that she wanted to live, but also not who she was, and that a change needed to be made. And now she helps other individuals do the exact same thing. She does primarily work with mothers to help them tap into what matters most to them: clarity, alignment, purpose, all of the stuff that y'all know we love talking about over here, and supporting them in bridging this work with their practical daily life, which, of course, that's coherence right there, y'all. If you're interested in learning more about Christina, her work, or working with her directly, all of those links will be in the description down below wherever you may be listening or watching. And definitely go follow Christina across all of the social medias. All of those links will be down below as well. If you're interested in learning more about the Cohere Collective and the mission behind the Making Meaning podcast, you can head on over to our website, www.thecoherecollective.com, to learn more there. And you'll also find all of the important links to me, Cohere, and all of our stuff in the description down below too. Okay? I believe that is all I have for you, so let's take a deep breath. And get started. Christina, thank you so very much for being here with me today. I am so excited to be sitting down with you and chatting, and I can't thank you enough for your time and energy and expertise being here.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Reese. I am really excited to be here. I love the energy that you bring. From our conversation about even doing this, like, I got so excited with the process that you're trying to do and what you're trying to connect and the impact that you're trying to make. I just resonate so much with it. So I'm really excited for this conversation and seeing what comes from it.
Thank you so much. That's so kind of you to say and means so much to me. And I'm very excited too. I think this will be a very interesting conversation. I'm excited to see all the places we go. But to start our conversation on a lovely note, my first question is just, what is something that you're grateful for right now?
Oh, what a great way to start the interview. I am so grateful that I live in the Midwest, and winter and I have been playing nicer the past few years, but typically have a very strained relationship.
Understandably so.
So I am grateful that we are moving forward. We are getting so much more daylight in our days, and it is just bringing me so much joy to be able to have the sunshine peeking in every now and again. So that is something that I'm very grateful for.
I love that. I do find that I am so affected by the level of sunlight in the sky. That's something that just like the older I get, the more in tune with myself I get, the more I'm like, why am I not having the best day today? And it's like, oh, well, it's cloudy.
Yeah. It's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, wait," when the sun finally comes back and you're like, "No, I am a whole person. I'm not this empty, depressed shell.
I
I
just
was in you the
needed
whole
I
time.
just needed vitamin D, I
I
guess.
just needed some vitamin D."
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, my second question that I think will hopefully just give us a really beautiful foundation to have our conversation from is, what is your story? I know that's a very big question and it covers a lot of different things, but whatever you feel called to speak to in this moment, I would love to hear all about it.
Yeah. Well, thank you again for giving me the opportunity to share. I think that for a question like that, like it can be so broad, and I can give you a bunch of labels and roles and all of those things. But I think when you're speaking, you're asking me that right now. What's really resonating for me is just that I am a person that has been on a journey. I've always been interested in how people work, how we work, learning more about kind of carving our own paths and questioning what has been given to us as just assumptions through society. And through that, I have gone in different phases. I think we had spoken before, and like my background is that I studied psychology in school. I worked in the corporate world for a while in the nonprofit world, and um, really, what I always felt called to was the people behind all of the ideas and the entities and the structures that were in place. And I found myself being kind of pulled into this burnout where I was just doing all the things, and I had throughout my life really followed this path of like get good grades, go to college, graduated right away. I got married with to my husband when we were both young. We waited a while to have kids. And like just the next step and the next step and the next step. And giving my all to everything that I was doing. And what I started to notice was that I was feeling a sense of disconnection with who I was.
Mm,
And so that kind of reignited that thirst and learning and that idea that there was something more that I was just feeling like I was lacking and that I really wanted to connect to again, and that I wanted to bring more of that energized, inspired, creative parts of me.
mm,
And as I dug into that more, I started to get really into personal development and going back to some of those roots and like bringing in the practices and the ideas that I had kind of known about but put off on the shelf and in
sure.
favor of productivity. And started bringing back that and started to really be able to notice a deep change within myself. And I think that that translated to my kids and my relationship. And I started to realize that I could I had so much more, um, and like the power was in me. It wasn't all
Mm,
these outside circumstances. My husband and I actually, I mean, speaking of living and growing up in the Midwest, um, when we got married young, I said, absolutely, like we can get married, like this is great. Also, I can't live here because I need sunshine. I need to be out. I need to be somewhere else. And so I thought that that was an external thing. Like I needed the sunshine. I needed the ocean. I needed those things to make me happy, and we did, and we moved down to Florida for, a few years and wound up all of our family is here, and so having that disconnection from having those close ties, and we're both very close with our families, was just so strenuous too, and then
mm,
realizing that actually it didn't matter where I was located. It didn't matter what my external circumstances were. It didn't matter how my coworker was treating me. It didn't matter any of these things. Like I was the one that had the ability to change how I responded.
mm,
And my response was everything. And once I was able to realize that and like change my life without waiting for somebody else to do something or for outside circumstances to change for me to be happy, I just wanted to share that with everybody and just wanted to really be able to be like, no, like you have it in you. It's there and you can bring it out. And so that's kind of led me to what I do now and the work that I do and just the impact and the passion that I want to share.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. It's truly I I never get over how just cool it is that I get to listen to people's stories about coming back into alignment with themselves. And one thing that really resonated so strongly with me in your story was when you were talking about realizing this sense of disconnection that you had with yourself along your path. And you said you really wanted to reconnect with who you were. And the way that you framed it made me think, probably along the lines when we're kids, you had a connection, a sense of who that inner self, true self perhaps might be. And then you lost it or it became a little disconnected to need this reconnection, right? At what point do you think the disconnection arose?
Mm.
Um, and what causes this disconnection when it seems like connection is something that we naturally have with this sense of self? Unless you may disagree with that. Would love to hear anything that's
Yeah.
coming up.
Yeah, I think when you're asking that, and I think that for me, and I think for a lot of people that I talk to, and I don't know if it's a 100% common experience or not, but for me, I think that growing up, that we do have this innate, just like sense of self, of
Mhm.
who we are. We come out and we are just the people that we are. And as we grow and as we um have our relationships with our immediate family, as we have our relationships with education system, as we have our relationships with friends and all of these things, that little by little we start to see where there are parts of ourselves that maybe butt up against those traditional expectations or
Mm,
what it might be. And I think that for a lot of kids, and I don't think that it's unconscious, but I don't think that it's conscious. I think that when you start to be able to butt up to that, and I think from my experience is that I would start to soften those edges and like
right.
try to change to make other people maybe more comfortable, to fit the expectations, to fit in, in the adolescence, I think you get into that whole thing of like, I need to fit in and I need to do what people are doing. Um, and so I think that little by little, because I don't think it's like one all of a sudden quick left turn. I think it's just this little by little softening of our edges that makes us turn into more of this homogeneous version of ourselves that looks very similar to all the other ones around us, but also loses some of that sparkle of
Mm,
ourselves.
yeah, absolutely. And I love how you characterize it. It's not like all of a sudden it's just a left turn and boom, you're disconnected. It is kind of a systemic and slow process of, oh, it might be easier if I don't say this, or it might make my life a little bit harder if I do that. So maybe I just won't. And then, 20 years down the line, it's when did this happen? How did this happen? And it's just that slow process of disconnection. Um, I'd love to just hear a little bit more about these external expectations because I completely agree with you in this characterization of disconnection. And it's something I think I'm still going through as a young person, especially and growing up in the South, the expectations that are placed on me to get married young, have a family, do this word that you've used a few times, traditional expectations, right? Like being a good, productive member of society, whatever that actually means. And it's really difficult to feel like you are disappointing people or letting people down, but it's also difficult to feel like even if no one's really upset about it, it means I'm having a vastly different experience from my peers and from people around me. So, talk to me about what these expectations felt like for you and why are they so alluring? Why is there something about them that we're still, even though I think all of us kind of know, like, oh, but I have this thing about me and like my path, but yet we still get pulled, all of us do, into these I'll just use the same word because it's a great word for it. These expectations of what we should be and what life should look like.
Yeah, I think that for most of us, when we start our path, we're trying to be the best version of ourselves. So we are constantly,
Mm,
and I think for many, many people, especially the people that are going to be listening to your podcast, like those are people that are constantly wanting to grow and learn and evolve and like be able to connect with that deeper meaning. And for those of us that are like that, and for me, I know that I am constantly trying to look at objectively and see, like, okay, where are the spots that maybe I actually don't view this thing in the most productive light, or if I'm not giving somebody the benefit of the doubt, or I think also, like, from a very altruistic standpoint, if I'm doing this behavior that, I come up and I'm loud or I'm whatever I am, and it's impacting others, and I'm noticing that it's having that impact on others from an altruistic standpoint, I think that many of us are like, oh, like, I don't want to have that impact.
mm,
And I think what you had said too of like, I don't want to disappoint other people. And how much of our lives is spent in this way of like turning away from potential disappointment of disappointing others
yeah,
and getting the validation, because when you do soften the edges, when you do change a little bit, you're often going to get validation from other people.
right.
And so, of course, it makes sense because at that point, it feels good. It's not until way down the path later that you're like, oh, wait, who am I anyway? Because
Right.
all along, you've been getting like these little hits of like, yes, this, be this. Oh, yeah, that's great. And just following those and losing that sense of like, wait, what did I actually want to begin with?
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that when you're speaking to that disappointment part, like, it has taken me decades to even get to the point where it's like, "Oh, I can be disappointing." Like, somebody else can be disappointed in me, and that doesn't make me a disappointing person. Like, they can be disappointed, and that is totally fine. And would I rather disappoint someone else because I'm being true to myself, or do I wanna disappoint myself and let
Yeah.
myself down just to potentially get favor from someone else?
Right. Absolutely. It's a really big thing that my therapist always reminds me of, much to my chagrin, where she's like, you can make a mistake and not be a mistake. You can make a bad choice and not be bad, right? Like these one small decisions or an interaction from one person does not constitute the entirety of your being. And I think that's something that as humans we live in, like, time and space, right? We're kind of subject to this point in history, and it feels very much like whatever is the most present at hand, whatever I'm experiencing right now is the most important. And therefore, if the person in front of me is disappointed in me or doesn't like the joke I made or, fill in the blank with anything that could be potentially scary, make you not belong, make you not fit in, make you part of the out group as opposed to the in group, which would be socially um, dangerous, it feels like the most devastating thing in this moment that's right here, even though ultimately that's where, this work that you're speaking about kicks in to say, okay, but this isn't everything. This person isn't the ultimate arbiter of me and who I am. Hey y'all, it's Reese just briefly interrupting this conversation to ask you how you're enjoying it so far. And let me know in the comments down below, has resentment played a role in your purpose self development journey? It's something I haven't thought about in a while, but I think was definitely more prevalent for me when I was younger. And I felt like I was always doing so much for everyone around me and not getting as much in return, and then that just really like clocked me into how people pleasing is just a nice way to say manipulation. So, yeah, let me know what you think about this. And these feelings of wanting to be a caregiver and caretaker, but also how difficult that can be when we need to caregive and caretake ourselves. If you are enjoying this episode, definitely give it a like wherever you may be listening or watching, subscribe, and give us a 5-star rating and or a review, and drop in the comments what you think. If you have any thoughts, if any ideas have been sparked. These are all the very best ways to support the Making Meaning podcast and to let me know what it is that you enjoy, what it is that's resonating with you, so I can keep creating stuff and having conversations that is engaging and exciting for us to be doing this work together. Okay, now let's get back to the conversation. And that actually leads me to another question that I wanted to ask you about, because as you were talking about this sense of disconnection with who you were and eventually coming back to it, when through this journey, how did you identify what the I was? When you said I felt disconnected from the self and I wanted to reconnect and realign, what is it that you're realigning with? What is it that you are reconnecting with? What is that perhaps primordial sense of who you are?
Yeah. I think for me, I view it as like that inner spark, that inner, like, we're all born with these gifts that have been given to us, and we're all born with these opportunities that we can play with. And I think for me, like, being able to notice and reconnect with the things that light me up, the things that bring me joy, the things that I crave and want to do more of outside of whether that is monetarily productive, outside of whether that is like beneficial for the people that I'm around, like just because I want to and feel, and those feelings too. So, not even like the actual experience itself, but like the feelings that I would have, and when I felt that disconnection, what it would feel like to me is I would start to get resentful. I would start to
Mm,
get grouchy and irritable, and I would just feel like I was underappreciated and nobody was noticing that I was, like, just having this experience where I could put on the face, I could go out
right.
there and it would look like everything's great and everything's fine. But that inner sense of, like, unease and just friction, it just felt really, like, turmoily in me, and when I would notice, I wouldn't actually even equate that to it sometimes, it would just be the outer, like, "Oh, I'm not satisfied. Oh, I
Mhm,
need something else to change. Oh, well, when this happens, then I will feel better." And it
right.
was it was all of those things that then if I actually turned it within, it was like, "Oh, wait. No, it's not that thing that I want over there. It's that I am living outside of who I know." And so for me, that loss of integrity, of feeling like I was actually living how I thought that I wanted to, like my actions
Yeah.
were not aligned with what I thought I should be doing.
Yeah. I love that use of the word integrity. I think that it's something that isn't used enough, but also when we do use it, it's kind of misused, and that it's like, your word aligns with your actions, which it's like, yes, but there is something even deeper to integrity that is like your being aligns with your being, right? That it's like these things are actually coherent with one another, and that's living in integrity. I really love that. I also really love the mirroring between um there's this mirroring that's coming up in how you're talking about this, that is like, in order to reach the solution, you talked about how it was removing kind of the judgment of what was right and wrong from these external things and pulling that back into the self. And same thing here, when you're identifying what that is, it's, well, I'm not going to listen to the feelings that are being caused by these external things, but have to come back internal and inward. And I think that both being the like cause and solution here is really, really fascinating.
Yeah, and I think for so much of what I have experienced in my life is that I will have that, and it's almost like that full circle moment, that coming
Mhm.
back. It's like I think that even as I was doing all of those things, even as I was, getting the good grades, I was still doing it on my terms. Like I was skipping school, I was doing whatever, but I was getting the outward expectation of I'm going to get these good grades. I'm going to do whatever. I'm going to go to school and I'm going to go to college and I'm going to do it in this short period of time, but I'm going to do it in the way that I want to. And I want to,
Right.
I'm going to get married and I'm going to be really young, but also we're going to move and we're going to do stuff and we're not going to have babies right away. And like, so there was always this part of me that I feel like was that direction point. It was like, okay, yes, like you can keep
Mm,
going and you can do. And I think that that is why it took me a while to recognize those shifts because I was like, oh, no, I'm still living like for me, like I'm still doing what I want to because I have always been someone who questions like,
right.
why are we doing like, yes, if you can get me on board, you can explain why. Absolutely. I'm 100%. I will follow that. If you can give me no reason that's logical on why I'm going to do this, no, I'm not going to,
Peace. Yeah.
right? I'm out. So like, I think that that bit, but then so would take that full circle moment of like, okay, this is who I knew I was. And then I would move away and I'd move away and I'd move away. And then it was like, oh, wait, no, I'm back. And then it was like, oh no, when I get back to me, this was me all along. Like, I could have put it
Mm.
out and put it on everybody else and thought that all of these other things were the reason, but no, actually, when I dig deeper and deeper and deeper, it comes all the way back.
Yeah, I think that's so powerful too, especially like speaking as someone, I really relate to what you're saying about like, but I am a natural questioner and I am naturally curious and I'm not one just to go with the status quo because it's status quo. And yet, even people with these tendencies, both of us speaking to our lived experience, feel this pull, this kind of backslide into those expectations still. And I think it's really easy, at least for me, to say, oh, well, I'm good. I don't need to worry about that because I am a questioner, because I've never done the traditional path. And yet, it still somehow creeps up on you in this way. And so I think that that's really poignant that it's like, but how does that even happen to someone who is actively trying not to do that and who is really trying to live in alignment with their self? And yet we still will misstep every now and then.
And how much more so, I just think about all the people that aren't questioning. Like, if
Mm,
this is my experience, living as someone who does question, who does all the things, and I found myself feeling just so disconnected from myself, then how much more so for the people that aren't connected? And sometimes I just wonder, like, are they just because they're not questioning them, they don't have the disconnection, they don't feel the
yeah.
disconnection? Um, but I think that to your point, like, yes, how does this happen? But I do think that as you're speaking about it and you're talking about it, and like, okay, I think the question is what makes us notice. I think the questioning is where we see it. And I think that for many people that question, it comes sooner. I don't know if you're hearing like all the talk about the quarter life crisis and all these things now too, but like I think for people that are questioning and wondering, like they're noticing those misalignment shifts where I think that potentially older generations and things just were doing. They were so busy doing all the things that they didn't, would take till midlife crisis or something till they started to like really start to think about what am I doing? And I think we're doing it earlier now, which I think is really great.
Yeah.
But
I agree. Yeah.
but I think also like it does feel a little bit more like, oh my gosh, like what is it then? Like what is this deeper anything?
Yeah.
Um
Part of me almost wonders if, like, as we've evolved a little bit more and like technology continues to advance and um I think we've certainly seen like at least in the statistics around like, oh well, in my grandparents' time it was like you have one job, you get your job, it's a status quo job, and you retire around 65 and that's kind of your life. And then with my parents, like maybe you have two or three jobs and a job transfer is how you get a big pay raise, and also like maybe entrepreneurship is something that's a little bit more likely. And now with my generation, it's like you're going to have 20 jobs and you're going to continually explore and you're probably going to start your own company at some point. And like just this idea of like self sovereignty and freedom over self, I think, is becoming so prized, but also with new technologies and the internet, it's becoming more available and capable. But I also wonder, just as we become like more educated as a people and as a species, if that's allowing more and more people to have the time and space to think about these things. Because I do think another thing I think about a lot, which would love to hear your thoughts on this too, is what a privilege it is to be able to question. Because I know there are probably lots of people that do have these questions and are naturally inclined to ask them, but are working three jobs, are
Sure.
single parents, or, if you pause to question, all of the plates that you're juggling would just crash. So, yeah, there's a lot there, but thoughts?
Yeah, I think that that's totally true. And I acknowledge all the time what a state of privilege that I'm in to be able to do the questioning, to be able to make the decisions that I've made for myself, for my family, for our
Yeah.
kids. And I think that all of that is it speaks to the abilities and like you were talking about all the opportunities that we have. I think that some of that for the older generations, they didn't have all the opportunities, but they also, I think, had more stability. And I think that we've
Mm,
given up that stability and that security of like, I'm going to get the job, I'm going to be there, my company's going to pay me, I'm going to get my pension, I'm going to whatever for this freedom and for all of these opportunities. And I wonder too if that is creating more of that sense of like, there's so many things. What do I do? What do I choose? Like, and having some of that. And I also think when you were talking about like, as a having more education, having more resources, and I think about my generation. So I had, my kids are teens and preteens right now. And I know that when I became a mom or when I was pregnant with my oldest, all of the information that's available about all of the different opportunities, and I am a researcher. I am, I'm a psychology background. Like I was digging in. What am I going to do? How am I going to do it?
of course.
And so like looking at it and seeing all of the array of information that is out there and how much of it and this doesn't even go to the extent of like misinformation that's out there or made up stuff that's out there, but like just in general all of the different theories, all of the different opportunities. And I think for our generation and my generation as turning into that and like turning into motherhood specifically was such an eye opener in like they always say, you know better, you do better. Well, we know so much, but I think that that has caused a whole generation of, I'm a millennial. So in that generation of people that are turning into, whether that's their professional lives, whether that's becoming parents, but of looking at it and saying, like, am I doing this wrong? Because I can be told, I can do something, I can say that I'm doing this, and then 5 minutes later on social media or something, it'll show me how this is actually the worst way to do it. And like having all of those responsibilities and feeling that sense of like, I want to be doing the right thing. I don't
Hmm.
know how to do the right thing. I wasn't parented necessarily in the way that is this now given out as like, this is how we should be raising our kids. I don't have these skills. I'm exhausted. I'm working. I have all these, like, the pressure that I feel like comes from some of that
Yeah.
information abounding can be so, like, you can just feel so much weight of it.
Yeah.
And then I think that it can turn into more of the apathy. Like, "Ugh, I don't know. I can't even do it. I can't keep up. So I'm just gonna give up, I guess, or I'm gonna, like, just get by and just constantly
Yeah.
trying to get by, but feeling like you're not good enough.
Yeah. I completely agree, and I think that sense of overwhelm, like, I know one word you used as well was burnout. I think there is almost just this sense of, like, especially people who are innate questioners or really passionate people, There's an interesting thing that happens where you do kind of backslide into apathy when it's like there's so many things that I wanna do and I wanna perfect and I wanna learn about that I just need to take a nap.
Yeah.
That's so fascinating to me, and I think that absolutely I agree with you, the integration of social media and the internet in our lives that's just inundating us with information all the time, and often information that's telling us how we're doing things wrong or how we should be doing things better, or all of the things in the world that are deeply disheartening and discouraging and really difficult to deal with, that also we want to help with and we want to be educated on, and that we all have to be an expert everything now all the time, and it's just too much, right? It's just way too much. And to be able to pause and come back to, center, to self, exactly what we were talking about. And I want to hear a little bit about what that inflection point was like for you. Um, I know you said when you realized this sense of disconnection with who you were, it really motivated you to want to reconnect, to come back to that, to um, start moving back to the direction, that this sense of remembrance. What do you think it was that gave you the push, the courage, the bravery to do that work?
Mhm.
And also, as a mom, as a partner, as someone with other people absolutely depending on you while doing this, what is that experience like? Because I think that adds so many other layers with exactly like you're talking about, with juggling so many different things and like wanting to be the best mom you can be, the best partner you can be, but also needing to be the best you can be at the same time. Um, I'm like, I'm not a mom or a partner and I still struggle with it. So talk to me about the decision
Yeah.
to come back, that feeling, but then also at the point in your life when you did it, right?
Yeah, and I think that, like you're speaking, like, it's not a linear thing. It would happen. It would go off and then it would come back. So there's been times when I, just like you, would have all of those things be coming back and didn't have a part or I didn't have kids or whatever, and I had a partner most of the time, but I would have those times to be able to come back. But coming back as a mom and having all of that sense of responsibility. And I think honestly, for me, I I did not we did not have kids right away, and we got married. I was 19 when I got married. And we didn't have kids until I was 30. And at that point, like I was like, I don't know, maybe we just won't have kids. Like our life's good, or everything's fine. I came from a big family. I had grown up being the oldest. Like I had all the kids around. Um, and so realizing and when I got pregnant and, like, the change that I knew was gonna happen was terrifying to me because I envisioned it looking like self-abandonment. I envisioned it looking like having to give up my wants, desires, and needs for this other human, and not that that is wrong in any sense, but for me, it felt like I was gonna be losing me, and I was terrified, and I don't know that that experience resonates with all moms. I know there's many of them that come in and are just so excited, but for me, I was terrified, and so I think that some of all of the research and all of the questioning, all the things that I was doing at that point in time was like, "How do I stay true to myself
Mm,
and be able to have this tiny human that's gonna be fully dependent on me,
yeah.
also be able to, like, to meet their needs and to show up the way that I wanted to. And I think that balancing act is what, like, I I had my son, and when he was little, and I would still go out and go outside and, like, go for a walk or go for a run and, like, leave him with my husband, who he would I mean, we'd usually do it right after he was fed. So we'd be or hopefully happy.
Right.
But
Good
but
for the
not
time
always.
being.
Yes, control time. But also like knowing that if I didn't do those things for myself, I knew that that slippery path, like, I could just see it. I knew
Mm,
that slippery path was gonna go down. I knew that I was not gonna show up as the mom that I wanted to be, frankly, and I wasn't gonna show up as the person I wanted to be, and I wanted to be, and I still, like, I want to be a full human for my children.
yeah.
I want to show them and model for them what a full human is, and that it is not that they are the center of my universe, but they are a very important part of it. But,
Yeah.
like, I have passions, I have desires, I have things that I wanna do, and my husband is not the center of my universe. He's a very important part of it. But I am my own person, and I want to be able to show them that it's okay for them to have their own desires, their own wants, their own paths and journeys. And for me, like, coming into that and having that, and even, like I said, like, even like, knowing this about myself, knowing that this was going to be something that was gonna be very sticky for me to navigate, and still finding myself sliding into that burnout and that feelings, and, like,
Yeah.
all of it was, I think, why I didn't realize it, and it took me a while to realize that, like, "Oh, this is why," and I just would start to notice as I started to get a little bit older, like, I am just feeling like I am doing too much. I feel like I am so resentful all the time. I feel like I am impatient. Like,
Mm.
I would tell my husband, I'm like, the kids get all my patience. I'm sorry, you get none of it. Like, there's only so much to go around and they get it all. But those were clues that I just wasn't reading correctly. Like, I just thought, oh, this is a hard season.
Mm.
And I think that for me, like, being able to start to look at and to notice and to be able to say, oh, like, no, this doesn't have to be my experience right now. And finding so much joy in all the things I was doing at the same time that I was also, like, equally just feeling overrun and just exhausted.
Yeah.
And having those and being like, "You know what? Both can exist." And there's nothing wrong that I'm feeling all of these things. I just have to know when I have to manage, and I have to choose me sometimes too. Like, I have to physically go and really make a concentrated effort to choose me. And it doesn't always mean time or it doesn't always mean space. Sometimes it's just choosing me in the hard conversations or choosing me in the difficult, like, no, actually, I don't want this thing for dinner. Like, just like
Yeah.
expressing my opinions and being able to just be disappointing sometimes. And that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, I really love that. Thank you for sharing all of that. And I think that that's such a beautifully honest and also probably accurate experience that a lot of women have, that there's not a lot of space for the conversation around motherhood not being purely this beautiful, perfect, glorious, miraculous experience, which, of course, being a mother is a miracle, right? And it's like I have all of the grace and admiration and, like, honor and gratitude for my mom, but also all of the mothers that exist, and our ancestry and lineage as women. It's like it is so powerful in so many ways. And also, I am deeply terrified similarly, and it's like we need to talk about the reality of these feelings, and I often wonder how much of these um fears and backslide is the expectation that's largely set on women to be more self-sacrificial. And I think too, even though it's certainly different as a mother with children and, not being a parent, but a similar theme, I think, that a lot of women probably feel is just something else or someone else having to be the center of your universe besides yourself, right? And I think that that self-sacrifice is so, like, upheld and honored. It's like seen as this very worthy thing when it's motherhood, but if it's, you know, self-sabotage for these other reasons, it's like, why is this self-damaging behavior something that we honor when it's a mom, but something that we warn people against when it's anything else? And I just love hearing your characterization of, like, I want to be a full human being for my kids because I do think that that examples reality. And also, I'm sure the type of parenthood experience that you would want your kids to have too, that is, you don't become just a parent when you are a parent. You are still who you are, and that person is still just as worthy of taking up space, whether or not you chose to have kids. And being able to feel all of that. I just really appreciate you sharing that and sharing the fears too, because I think we don't talk about the difficulty of holding not just the expectations we put on ourselves as women, wanting to be self sacrificial and nurturing and caregivers, but also just the impossible expectation of like, and do it with a smile on your face because it's worthy when you do it in this way.
Yeah. Yeah. And what great points too. And I think that when you were talking about like the epitome of what a woman and a mom was in my like growing up experience of thinking about it was like they were so dependable. They were so selfless. They would do anything for their kids. And like, yes, that sounds amazing. And also, like you're saying, like, these are the exact same attributes that in any other context would be codependency. It would be self
Yeah.
sabotage. It would be like, don't you even know yourself? And like, just that self abandonment. But
Yes.
because it's in this relation to being a mom, then all of a sudden it's this example and this pedestal that we want to put them up on for the exact same behaviors.
Mhm.
And for most of the time, and I think it is starting to change now, and there is more of a movement towards moving into like more fairness in relationships and in parenting.
Absolutely.
But I think traditionally, and I think that even as we're moving, it's still not there.
Yeah.
And the expectations that I would have as a mom were not the same expectations that my husband would have.
Yeah.
Like he could be a father and be moving up in his career. He could be a father and he could like take them out to the grocery store and, they're missing a shoe and they're whatever, and isn't he a great dad? But if I go and do a similar thing, like I'm just a terrible mom because why am I not taking care of my children and why are they not fully clothed and why aren't they, presentable? So I think that the dichotomy in that, and I think for me, that was where that fear came from.
Mm.
I didn't know. I didn't I still feel like that like inner sense of purpose, and I think that desire to fulfill my purpose, right? It was like I haven't done it yet, and now I'm gonna have kids too. Like how in the world? Like I guess that's just it for me, and so I think that that's where that fear came from is because I felt like I had to do it before I had kids. And if I didn't have
Mm.
it figured out by then I was just going to be written off. Like the rest of that was going to be written off. And I think that I would express some of this. And I was talking to my mom one time and I was pregnant. I was just like, oh, what am I gonna? And I don't even know. And I'm like, I'm trying to do these things and, using some of my passions, but I wasn't quite sure how I was figuring it out yet. And she was just like, you know, it doesn't have to change just because you have kids. And she goes, and honestly, some of that, and she didn't mean it um, oh, the kids are going to be your meaning kind of a thing, like give up everything and the kids are just going to be in your meaning. It was just, she's like, what if that and you being a mom though also contributes to bringing in that purpose for you? And so much of that has been true because the people that I work with, the work that I do, have a completely different perspective now. And my children have made me question more for
Mm.
myself. They have given me so much more like I do things for me because of them. And, we talked a little bit at the beginning about like my background and like just having this dreaded hate of like the winter and whatever and needing to move. And when we came back here, I was miserable again in the winter. And it was a few years in, and then like was pregnant, I had a toddler, and I finally was just like, you know what? I have this tiny child who thinks winter is magical, who thinks that snow is such a gift, who has no care about like what it is outside. Like, they just want to go out and play. And I am making this experience miserable for them and for me. And what I decided was, you know what? Like, no, I'm done with this. And I'm breaking this. I'm breaking it because it's best for me, even though I wouldn't have maybe done it just for me. But doing it for them, being like, okay, no, we are going outside every day. And I'm just going to go outside, and whether it's 10 minutes, whether it's 15 minutes, whatever, like, I'm just going to go outside every day. I'm going to start to get us the equipment that we need, like the layers that we need, appropriate, whatever, so we can make this experience not so awful. And that has changed so much in me. And I
Mm,
would have probably never done it if I didn't have that, like, no, I don't want this for them. If they decide that they don't like it later, fine. But, like, I don't want to put that in them right now.
right.
And so I think that like, has created so much more meaning because I show up in a way that I want. Like, I see it through their eyes. I see me and what I'm doing and how I'm doing it through them. So it's like,
Mm,
oh, do I want to do this thing? Oh, maybe not. But also, like, do I want to be the person that does this thing? And doing it from that way has given me so much more, like, enlightened view, and,
mm,
like, really want and making me want to follow through and live in that sense of integrity that we had talked about earlier.
yeah,
Like, I wanna model this for them. I wanna
yeah.
model all of it, this fully human experience. I'm not always perfect, I'm not always whatever, but, like, I want you to see it, and I want you to see it all, and so you have the freedom to do whatever you wanna do.
Yeah. I love that. What a beautiful gift to yes, example that for your kids, but also to give to yourself that it's like the freedom of me taking care of myself is a gift to these people, and me showing up wholly and fully as myself is the best thing I can do in taking care of the people around me. And that's something that I've really been working on as well, even in friendships and family relationships, that it's like even the things that feel deeply selfish are actually the thing that allows me to be the most in service. And not that that's the only thing that makes taking care of yourself valuable, but it certainly helps me get past that part of my brain that says, "You're being really selfish." It's like, well, it actually is gonna help me not be selfish later, so it's okay.
Yeah.
Which, of course, working on just being able to take care of myself as it is right now in the moment is worthy in and of itself. I do also really love the way that you framed, um, what your mom said to you, that the kids aren't going to become your purpose, because I think that is so often told to women that that
Yes.
is your purpose. That is the meaning of being a woman. And whether or not like if you choose to have kids, that's going to become your world, and
Yes.
just wait until you have kids and you'll see. And I think that that's really beautiful to think of. I mean, like you said earlier, they are a huge part of my world. Of course, it would be crazy if these your nuclear family is not extremely important to you. However, that is a piece of the puzzle of you, not in isolation what it is, and actually an access point to discovering even more expansiveness and purpose. And I think I'd love to just hear a little bit more about your definition of purpose.
Mhm.
And as you've talked about, like, but that's something that I want to reach, that I want to achieve, that I want to experience. What is it that you think you're trying to achieve when you say that about purpose?
So I think that my definition of purpose has evolved over the years. And I think that when I was younger, I did think it was this destination. It was this thing that I was going to find and that I was going to do. And it usually was involved in some type of um professional environment. It was my calling. It was my thing that I was going to be doing. It was going to be my what was funding my lifestyle, was going to be all of it. But it was this thing that I just had to find, right? I just had to find it.
Mhm.
If I just kept looking around, maybe I would figure that out. And I think that as I've grown, as I've evolved, like, the the purpose is in the journey. Like, me being here, me experiencing and fully living in how I want to be living, and honestly, me messing up. and going and getting into, out of alignment and me coming back, me
Yeah.
experiencing all of these things, that is my purpose. Me sharing, whether that's with a huge audience, whether that's with like my individual clients, whether it's with the people that are around me and the people that are noticing, the people the neighbors that I never speak to, but they see me on my daily walks. Like all
Mhm.
of it is part of my purpose. My purpose was never mine to find, it was just mine to uncover and live. And it's going to evolve and it's going to change. But I think my purpose is living fully, humanly, as I am and being that messy middle of wherever I am in life and embracing that as I continue to evolve, as I continue to grow. I think for a lot of time, I had a hard time like sharing publicly, sharing different things because as a questioner, I always wanted to like find like, okay, what is the actual answer?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
even just like viewpoint things like, oh, this is whatever. I'd be like, oh, but what about later then when I find out more information and then I don't know? And one of the things that has really given me a lot of freedom in the past, even couple of years, to be able to embrace sharing and talking and being able to discuss without, knowing that things could change is that these are just markers in time.
Mm.
So what I'm sharing, what I'm putting out there, they're just markers in time. That's where I am at that point in time. That's what the information that I have that can grow, that can evolve, and that can change. And also, that is not a detriment. That is not a failure. That is not me not knowing enough or not digging deep enough at this certain point. It is me being where I am and then being able to go and change my mind and be able to get more information because what a gift that is to be able to get more information and then make an educated decision to change and evolve my viewpoint. Like, how much better would the world be and communication be if we all were just less attached to our current viewpoints and being able to give us space to be able to grow, to evolve, to change? I think about some of the people that like I went to high school with and how like what they're doing now is absolutely nothing that I would have thought.
Mhm.
But they're growing, they're evolving, they're changing, and how maybe for them, like, same, like, they are looking at me like, "Okay, what?"
Yeah, yeah.
But being able to be somebody that changes and evolves because I don't wanna be stagnant, I don't wanna be laying still, so giving myself and just allowing these to be taking up space in whatever capacity that is, has just given me so much more freedom to be like, "Yes, I can give
Mhm.
out information, I can share my thoughts and opinions, I can get corrected and have it be
Yeah.
okay."
Again, like, making a mistake does not make you a mistake, like, and the failing forward. What do you think it is that having walked this journey and continuing to walk, I think it's difficult because, like you said, this will now exist as a marker in time of where we both are at our current journeys and paths, which is part of why I love this. I every now and then I'll go back and listen to an old episode and I'm like, did I say that? I hope I hope everyone knows that like I've grown since
Yeah.
then. But what is it that you think motivates you after having motivated and motivates you after having walked this journey to want to share? Of course, like you said, there is this piece that is now having the courage to do so despite like being misunderstood and misinterpreted and the bravery that that takes, especially with everything we talked about belonging and acceptance. But why help other people with this? Why is that the next step?
Mhm. Yeah, I think for me, and I think that, we've talked about this a little bit too, but being able the freedom, the sense of peace that I have now, um, I just I want that for other people. I see
Mhm.
so many people just walking around and just feeling like that something is missing, feeling like
Yeah.
something is just wrong, just walking around and really not enjoying their lives, and not because there's something, that's happened to them, because I think that this is completely separate too, and I don't want it to get like toxic positivity or anything like that. Like, there are
Of
real
course.
actual experiences for people that are awful and that are completely outside their control and that you can't just think your way out of.
Mhm.
But I think that for a lot of us, we are making our lives harder.
Mm,
We're we are identifying, we are looking at, we are creating that difficulty. I think that for so many people, if you ask them, how are things going or how whatever, it's like, oh, I'm busy. Oh, I'm moving. Like, things are just going. And I think that for so many of the people that I work with, and especially, most of them being moms, having that and being like, oh, yeah, I'm exhausted or I'm whatever, like, oh, life is just hard right now. It's a badge, it's a sign of honor. And I want to go out there and I want to question that. And I want to say, hey, you know what? Yeah, it is. You can be exhausted, and that is legit. And let's like give you space for that because you should absolutely be feeling all of that. And also, you don't have to live in that all the time.
right.
You can choose again. You do have so much more ability to change and create your life into something that you actually enjoy, that you can get more gratitude from, that you can get more excitement, that you can get more energy. I remember having a conversation with a girlfriend years ago and just being like, you know what? Like, I don't really know what joy is. Like, just happy? Like, I don't know. I'm like, how do you ever get satisfied? Because if I'm satisfied, then like I guess I'm not really striving anymore, but I still want to be growing all the time. So maybe just like this, like, oh, sometimes I feel happy and sometimes I'm dissatisfied. Like, that's okay. And just like really not understanding, right? Like a marker in time, like not understanding that that ability to be able to grow and change and evolve can live with contentment. I can be
Mm,
content in my life right now and I can still want more.
yeah.
I can have joy as like my baseline in terms of like that is my feeling that I am feeling most of the time because I can choose it. And I can sometimes feel happy and I can sometimes feel sad. And I can still have my baseline be that I am just looking for gratitude. I'm looking for joy. And again, that evolution was a whole process in it. But being here now, I'm like, oh, if I could have told me 10, 15, 20 years ago, like, no, it's okay. Like, you don't have to have one or the other. You don't have to constantly be striving and pushing and forcing and doing all these things. And you can be still wanting, still growing, still curious,
Yeah.
still evolving.
Yeah. I think so often we tell ourselves and other people, like, you have to always be more, right? And you have to always be pushing. And I'm like, I really like the use of the word satisfied. And then, of course, it's making Hamilton play in my brain. So
Yes,
I'm like,
yes.
that's in the background, right? Um, But I think that that's so true, and it's like, what is, like, contentment in the moment while also striving look like is exactly what we've been talking about, this kind of cyclical journey of becoming, but also being in the moment, and I think it feels really paradoxical, like, there is something about it that's hard for me to hold that is like, how can I be happy right now, happy with what I have if there's so much more that I want? How can I desire something if I'm okay with what I have? And it just feels like, am I not grateful enough? Am I not ambitious enough? And I think ultimately what I've come to is very similarly to what you said. Yeah, you can just have both of those things. And that's actually a very, well, y- correct me if I'm wrong, but that sounds like a very psychologically healthy
Yes.
place to be,
Yeah.
is just being able to hold the paradox of that, that like, I'm okay right now and I can want more and I can be okay then and then continue to want more. And I think so often, like, oh my gosh, the amount of like struggle Olympics that we play, I have this really, like, strong memory from middle school of, like, a friend being really tired and being like, "Oh, did you sleep okay last night?" And it's like, I only got 4 hours of sleep last night," and someone else is like, "Oh, you only got 4 hours of sleep? Well, I got 3." And then someone else is like, "Well, I pulled an all-nighter to prepare and study for this test," and me it was the first time that I just pulled back and I was like, "What are we doing? Like, why is that something that we're proud of?" Like, that's not that I want anyone to, like, feel shame, right? But it's like, maybe we should be proud of not taking care of ourselves in that way, and it is just so fascinating, and I wonder how much of that is from, like, the productivity culture that we are within as well, and this you always have to be pushing for more, and if you're not, you're lazy, and there's so much shame around this idea of laziness, but I think it's okay. I think the more that we can hold paradox with things, I think the better we become to ourselves and to others.
And what great insight for you to have in middle school. I will tell you that I had toddlers and children at home, and I was still doing that same thing with my husband and my friends. "What? You think you're tired? I haven't slept in 5 years."
Yeah,
Like,
right.
but to be able to have that and to have that paradox, and honestly, I think that that is where that growth happens. I think that
Mhm.
that is where those opportunities come from. I think that that's where, like, all of the things start to come in, because if I am sitting here and I am saying, "Oh, I want more opportunities in my professional life. I want more friendships. I want better relationships. I want to be able to have somebody that I can go out with." And I am sitting here and I am dissatisfied and I am angry about it and I am feeling just sorry for myself. I'm not doing the things that any of those I'm not I'm not out there. How many friends am I going to be making? If I am, they might not be really raising me up friends if we're all just sitting there
Right.
complaining at each other. If I'm looking for a partner, if I'm looking for somebody to be with, like, what am I attracting in? Why are they wanting to be with me if I'm just sitting there, like, feeling sorry for myself? What opportunities are coming to me? Why is the boss going to turn to me and say, "Hey, like, yeah, I think that we should give you a promotion because you are so upset about all the work that you're doing right now and just feeling really down." And so I think that
Yeah.
really this is a great opportunity, and you're showing us that you want more. And I think that so much of that is like this idea of I have to be in the state of dissatisfaction to be able to create more is the opposite. And why would
Actually
somebody say that?
counterintuitive to that. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Because the more that I can come and be like, "Okay, you know what? This isn't exactly what I want, but I can find all these little things that are okay. I can
Yes.
find these moments of joy." I look for glimmers throughout my day. I don't know if you've or heard that, but
Yes, yes.
the looking for it and being like, "Okay, what am I going to find that I can appreciate and I can notice these things." And it does not have to be everything. And it does not have to come from the spot of like, "Oh, I'm just going to pretend like things are good when they're not." I think really being realistic about what you're not happy with and what you want to change, because I think that's very important to know and have that baseline.
Mhm.
And then at the same time, looking for those opportunities. I noticed that I did not, as I got further in my career, I did not want to leave a job feeling like I had to leave that job. Feeling like
Yeah.
I was just going, because I would get to those points and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I can't do it anymore. Like, this is awful. I hate it here. I hate everything about it." And then I would get to the point it's like, "Oh, well, I'm going to start looking for something else." Fine. But when I found better opportunities, when I found things that were working better, it's because I intentionally would then start to like, "Okay, how can I make this more fun for myself? How can I bring in more? This isn't what I want to do, but I trust that there's something else coming and I'm going to show up like the version of me that I want to be and that I want to bring in." And that's when other opportunities would come. That's when it would come to a place where it was like, "Oh, I get to the next place and I actually feel better." Because when I would go and I just have to get away, I'd go to the next place, I'd feel better for a little bit, and then it would typically, revert to that same thing. So what can
Yeah.
I change? And how can I just like find little pockets of something? And I mean, honestly, just finding those little ones, and it would start to evolve a little bit, and then I would start to feel, and I'm like, "Okay, I could stay here for a while. I don't want to, but I could stay here for a while, but now I don't have to." Like, I have more
Yes.
opportunities.
Yeah, I love that. I heard something the other day that just resonated so strongly with me, and I was like, "Yeah, duh, that makes perfect sense." And I think so often we spend, especially in like spiritual new age manifestation spaces, it's often treated the universe is often treated as a vending machine where it's like, well, if I put in gratitude and all my wishes and desires, then the manifesting work will happen and I'll get what I want. But then people get really frustrated when it's like, well, I've been asking for this thing, I've been asking for this thing, I've been asking for this thing. Why isn't it coming? And the I'm gonna have to find the video it was in so I can link it down below, but the overall message was, well, if you have a glass of water and you're
Mhm.
constantly asking the universe for a bucket, but you haven't filled up your glass with water yet, you have no need for that bucket.
Yeah.
You're not overflowing yet. Like, you need to work on filling up what you have. And then once that glass gets full, we can work on the jug, and then we'll get to the bucket. But if you're not putting in the work of making the most of what is here in front of you, and I think, yes, that comes from gratitude, but it also comes from stepping into your wholeness and in this work that you've been talking about of like reconnecting with the self in this moment right now, not this, oh, well, I can reconnect with the self once I get to this point. Or like you were saying, once I have this, then I will be able to reconnect with the self. And just that image of like you need to fill up what you have right now and make the most of it. And I think so often we're waiting for our dream life to greet us. But you creating the life of your dreams is going to cost you the life you have right now. And that comes with, it'll cost you all of the ways that we don't hold ourselves accountable, but also all the ways that we're way too mean to ourselves on both ends of that spectrum.
Yeah, and it reminds me of, like, in narrative psychology, like, it's that a sense of identity, right? And who you are and who you think that you are is going to be for so many cases like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If
Mm,
I think that I am a certain way, and I used to do this too, like, I am not a morning person. I am not, I don't like it, whatever. And I would tell myself that story. I would tell other people that story, other people that would say, "Oh, I just get up at this time. I just whatever. Oh, I'm not a morning person. Don't talk to me in the office until 9 a.m." Like, no, let's not do this. And the more that I held on to that narrative and the more strongly and the more that I fought to hold that narrative, the more that, yes, of course, I am not a morning person. Now, when I let go of that and was like, you know what, I will embrace that I am not that I am a morning person because that's cognitive dissonance. If I sit there and I tell myself I am a morning person, that is just going to be like, you're lying to yourself and I'm losing self
mhm.
trust. So, not that I was a morning person, but that I can experiment. I can try to see what other people enjoy about the morning. I can try this. I can experiment. I'm somebody because as a sense of identity that I claim is that I am a curious person and I am willing to experiment. So in that vein of I am a curious person and I'm willing to experiment, I'm going to experiment with getting up early. Did I turn into a morning person? Absolutely not. But am I open to being up in the mornings? Am I allowing that flow in my life? Are there times and seasons in my life when I absolutely will get up early and do all the things? Yes, because I am opening myself up to that. So if you sit there and for so many of us, I feel like the stories that I hear and when I work with my clients, sometimes it's like, oh, well, I just can't do that. Like, oh, it's just not available to me. I'm not disciplined. I am not motivated. I am not whatever the stories that they're telling themselves over and over. Of course. Of course that's what you're going to find because that's what you're telling yourself and your brain is going to be looking to prove you right.
Yeah.
Yes, I am right. Look at this. This is happening to me. No, I just can't this thing that I want is just not coming to me. Look at all of these things. If you are constantly complaining, and I am a working on non-complainer because I do enjoy my complaining, and I used to enjoy it a lot, but
Hey, there's a time and a place. I
you
understand. I
know,
understand.
but noticing, and I tell this to my kids all the time too. I'm like, your words are magic. If you're saying these things out loud all the time, Of course, that's what you're going to feed in. So if I am claiming the identity of someone who is too tired, if I am claiming the identity of someone who is searching and can't find what they're looking for, if I am claiming the identity of someone that can't get what they want, then it's going to keep showing me instances of
Yeah.
that. And I'm going to keep coming up against that. But if I start to claim the identity of I am open to looking for those little things, it doesn't have
Mhm.
to be big. I am open to noticing some of the little things that are going well in my life.
Yes.
And then you start to build on that. And that is the little steps that just create a whole different identity.
Yes, I completely agree and adore what you're saying. I think a huge issue that a lot of people have with manifestation language and that has always felt very dissonant to me is because of the cognitive dissonance of it, that your subconscious is not going to believe a lie. And so often you hear like, "Oh, if you're working on self-love, then, repeat, 'I love myself' 30 times in the mirror every morning." And I'm like, "It doesn't matter how many times you say that in the mirror. If you don't believe it, you don't believe it. You're just repeating a lie into the mirror." But if you can break that down into what you can believe, exactly like you're saying, well, am I open to being a morning person? Am I curious about
Mhm.
what it might feel like? Am I capable of waking up early one day, right? Like, how simple can you make it to where you can believe it? And so I started doing this with my own affirmation, intention, manifestation. There's all these different psychology, magical affirmation kind of words out there that we can use to describe this kind of style of work. But it's like, am I worthy of loving myself? Am I capable of liking myself? Do I want to like myself? And finding the right kind of click of that makes you excited, that makes you feel curious, that makes you feel open to these things. I completely agree, and I love, learning the psychology behind that, the narrative psychology, and being reminded of the cognitive dissonance. Of course, we know that that does not work for our brains and also puts added stress onto our psyches when we're walking around with this cognitive dissonance of, "I'm a morning person. I'm a morning person. I'm a morning person," but just
And you're
not
like,
being able to
no,
wake up in the
everything
morning.
in me is screaming no.
Right, it's like, of course, that just feels wrong, so how can we work with what we have and what we have here? I would like to dive a little bit more into some of the psychology of this because that is your,
Mhm.
kind of formal background and expertise. How do you use psychology and your background there to help people with these questions of purpose and fulfillment and meaning? I think, of course, these are deep psychological questions, but what you talk about in your work is also not just clinical, not
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
you know, you know what I'm saying. I'd love to hear more about it.
Yeah, so I'll tell you a little bit about the background in it. So I went into school and I started learning about psychology because I love psychology. I love understanding why people work the way that we do, like all of it. And as I was getting my major in psychology, I wasn't entirely sure what I was going to do, but I thought maybe I'd go into counseling or therapy.
Mhm.
And so I'm getting in, and it's my last year, I think. And I'm in the class, and it was like introduction to counseling techniques or something, but it was like you're sitting down and we had to do practice sessions. And so we'd sit there and we'd be like, okay, here, and then we'd learn the language and the communication, the way that you talk to somebody in a clinical setting. And it was just, the intro class or whatever. But we're sitting there, we're having to sit down with our classmates and do these like mock sessions. And so they would sit there and they do it. And the whole time, as I'm sitting there as the, therapist and doing my role there, and it'd be like, oh, all of these things are, going wrong. And I'm, feeling really behind in this class. And I'm just in a whatever. And what I noticed for me was in my body, I'd be like, okay, like this is how I'm supposed to respond. This is whatever, whatever. Um, but it was so very much just and again, I didn't go deeper. I'm sure that they definitely do expand into it. But for that, it was just like so much just affirmation of what they were feeling, the mirroring, all the things. And I was like, "Great," but then they're leaving the session, and then what? Like, they're
Yeah.
still upset about all this stuff. Nothing has changed. Like, maybe they feel like they've gotten a little bit off, but, like, I'm just sitting there like, "But do you think that maybe, like, there's things that you can do, like,
Right.
actual actionable things that you can do to change the circumstance. There are different ways that you can even just think about this that might give you more freedom so that you don't have to feel this heaviness." And so I took that class and I felt that in my entire being the whole time. And I was like, No, not for me. Like, I will be a terrible therapist because I'd just be sitting there like, I think that you are not doing anything. And we've had the same conversation 60 times. Like,
Right.
what
Right.
are we doing here? And so looking at that and saying, okay, so I didn't go into that. So I went into more of like the business marketing type things and used, because I had a business minor too. So I used that in there and used those skills that I had in different settings that way. But I feel like that inner bit and like the understanding of why we are the way that we are, why we talk about things. So like the cognitive dissonance and looking at it and saying, okay, you're telling yourself this, but you don't believe it. And every time that you are reiterating, like sitting in the mirror and being like, I love myself, and you don't feel it, you're actually eroding self trust
Mm,
every single time. And so your brain is and your body are saying, okay, you know what? I can't listen to what she's saying because she is not telling the truth. Like I know. So you're like creating even more resistance by doing it that way. And
right.
so being able to notice, and what I like to do with my clients I work with is actually like, yes, we need validation. We need affirmation. We need to know that the feelings that we are feeling are real, because I think so much of that is felt like we are just not getting anybody to be able to see our human experience. And I
Mm,
think that that is so important, having that connection and that ability to see that human experience and being able to have somebody witness it is
yeah.
powerful.
Yeah.
And then it's what's next? What do I want to create? What do I want to do? And listening to their individual language, I think that one of the things that I'm very passionate about in the work that I do is really individualized approaches. I think that there are blanket approaches that people will use and like follow these things, this framework, this whatever, and then you can move through and you'll feel better. But I think that being able to find things that work within their own, the way their brain works, the way
Right.
that they show up for things, the way that the resistance will show up for individuals. Like some
Yeah.
people, I have clients who are just like, yes, going, like moving, doing all the things. I'll try it, I'll see. And I have clients that are like, no, like I need to sit and overthink this. Like I need
Yeah.
to I need to be in it. I need to find every possible solution. I'm not willing to take a step yet until I've done this. And being able to have the ability to have all of these different tools at my disposal and being able to look at and identify and create something that's going to work for them, and really being able to see somebody as a whole human person and finding those strengths. Because again, like we talked about at the beginning of that, like eroding and softly like s- creating more curves around your sharp edges of what your
Mm,
inner self is, but being able to find some of those sharp edges again and being able to notice them and appreciate them for the strengths that they are. Because
yeah.
so many of the things that we try to change about ourselves, so many of the things that we try to hide, or like we focus on our weaknesses, right? Like I'm trying to strengthen my weaknesses and do all these things.
Yeah.
Like the ability to sit down with my clients and be like, all right, like let's dive into your strengths and let's make them the focus. Let's stop trying
Yeah.
to fix all the things you think are wrong with you. Let's really dive into your strengths. And also, let's look at and learn that, like, this part of you, your loudness, your brashness, your honesty, like, this can be really disconcerting for people. And also, it is a breath of fresh air for other people over
Right.
here. Like,
Yeah.
this is exactly what they need. And so, by you sitting there and softening those things that you think are like, your problem areas, instead of leaning into the parts of it that are so beautiful and wonderful and like reconnecting them with that is honestly, it's my favorite part of being
Yeah.
able to sit there with my clients and being able to just be like, look it, no, this was you all
You're
along. Like,
you're
it's
yes,
you.
yes. Oh my gosh, I so resonate with what you're saying. My favorite thing in the world is to, like, in the middle of a coaching session, pause and be like, "Can we just take a minute and acknowledge, like, that you just did XYZ,
Mhm,
that that's you, that you brought this to the table, that you are owning the oh my gosh." And it's funny because especially for I work mainly with young women, and it's so rare for women to feel comfortable in the spotlight and to feel celebrated, and it's so, um like we were talking about earlier, it's just ingrained in us to shy away, to say, "Oh, well, it wasn't that impressive. Oh, well, actually, it was this person who did this thing and this person who
mhm.
did this thing," and, like, offload credit. And not to say that we shouldn't be thankful for all of the things that have made us successful for all of the different reasons and the people that support us and help us. But to pause and take a minute to just celebrate a client in session are some of the most powerful moments for me as a coach, to be able to, like, celebrate someone in all that they are, their edges, their sharpness. And hearing you talk about that, actually what came to mind is like, instead of softening these edges, thinking about how, like, a sharp knife is a safe knife,
Yes.
and the
Great
chefs
analogy.
thank you. It hearing you talk about it, it popped up, but I'm like, yeah, because if we're softening these edges, like, yes, brashness can be really disconcerting, but if that's this thing that you feel like is making your life harder, well, if these certain things get easier, how are these things gonna get harder because you no longer have that skill set? I just love that approach to it because our greatest strengths are also our greatest weaknesses. It's all about context, but it's great chefs aren't the ones that, started out with the perfect chef's knives kits or whatever. It's the ones who learn to handle them deftly, who know which tools are appropriate for which type of vegetable or which type of meal. Clearly, I'm not a chef, but
No, I love it, and also, like, you start off with a sharp knife, and you get it dull by whatever, you have to go back and you have to resharpen it. You
yeah,
have to
yeah.
do that recalibration, you have to
Yes.
reconnect.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I love hearing you say that, and this personalization approach that you have as well, because I do think so often one of the downfalls of the age of entrepreneurship, and I often hesitate to identify with the word coach because of some of the negativity, and maybe that's not even the right word to use here, but there's a lot of people who use entrepreneur and coach, which are 2 words that technically apply to me, that I really don't align with how those people operate and work, and so it makes it difficult for me to describe how I do what I'm doing, and a lot of that is because there's this one-stop shop, "This is the
Mhm,
formula, this is the way it's gonna work, this is the thing that you needed that's going to unlock everything," when actually it goes back to exactly what you said in the very beginning of our conversation. You don't need anything, it was already you. You have everything you need
right.
already.
Well, and I think one of the biggest flexes that I feel as a coach, and really it's not a great business model in that aspect, is that I want to be able to have my clients to be able to have our time together and then to feel so confident in themselves that then they can go on and not feel like they have to be tied to me. To
Yes.
be able to sit there and think, because I am sure you've had this experience too, where I'll have clients that, during our time together, they're like, oh, I was thinking, like, what would Christina say? And I'm like, that's great. That's great to start with. And also, eventually, I want to get to what would you say?
Yeah.
And, like, moving towards that, and I have had mentors and coaches that have done great work, and also that start to question when you're ready to move on, when you're doing those things. And I want, and I think to your point too of, like, okay, identifying with these words, that is, what I do. And it took me a really long time to, like, okay, yeah, I'm a coach, because I think that it felt for me like it had been co-opted
Yes.
into this version that was not aligned with what I was at all. And what got me to start to be able to, like, identify with is, like, okay, so I could not identify with that at all, and also, like, still have a really hard time explaining what I'm doing, what I like, what my goal is and what the work that I do is. And also, I'm still allowing that all to be co-opted. I'm still
Yeah.
allowing it all to be, like, taken for what all these things are, and also, if I wanna change the environment, then I want to be able to say, like, there are good and bad in everything that you're going to have, and I want to be able to have more people doing the actual work
Yes.
and not just selling me a program.
Yep.
And, like, actually, like, no, these are legitimate, because I think that the tools that we are able to utilize, the way that when you have somebody that you connect with and that you're able to take the time to really say, "Okay, I am in it, I am committed, I am willing to look at all these things," and have somebody be able to mirror, to be able to find those
Mhm.
language, those bits of pieces. I mean, been doing this whole conversation too, but, like, language is so important, and the way that people communicate tells me so much more about what their values are, what their thoughts
Yes.
are, what their everything, and all I have to do some of the time is just, like, pull out basically exactly what they say, but, like, "Hey, so I heard you using, like, that you should be doing this or that whatever," and, like, "Is that what you really meant? Should
Mhm.
you be," like, and, like, just pulling out those little words and those phrases to be able to get you to question what that baseline that's going on through your mind. I'm sure you've heard that quote about, like, 95% of our thoughts are just recycled every day,
Mhm.
and so we're just going through the motions, and to be able to get that pattern just interrupt, to be able to say, "Oh, wait, why?" and start to question that.
Yes.
And that, again, is where you start to, like, notice and you make those changes, and
Mhm.
then it's like, "Oh, actually, none of this has felt particularly difficult." Some of it might have felt uncomfortable, like, growth is uncomfortable sometimes, but actually, I am feeling better, and, like, I'm able to feel like I'm coming more into myself.
Yes. Yes. And growth is so uncomfortable, but I completely agree. Like these small incremental changes are really where long term shifting happens and realignment with our integrity really happens. And it has to begin with discovering what that integrity looks and feels like for each individual, exactly like you're saying in this personalized way. But having a relationship with someone who is meeting you where you're at too. I think so often in, yes, friendships and family relationships and, people that we have in our quote unquote real lives, not that coaches and therapists aren't in our real lives, but, you know, they often are trying to help instruct you from how they perceive
Yeah,
the best course of action.
yeah.
Whereas for me as a coach, I'm like, my opinion has no merit
Mhm,
in this at all. My job is to understand you and try and help you grow on your terms with what
mhm.
works best for you and your value system. And I think that that's a big problem that I also feel with some other people who have co-opted this language. And I know we in the past have chatted a little bit about how language is really difficult and actually there's a big issue with like therapy language and coaching language and all of these things being um overused and co-opted and trendified and
Mhm.
all sorts of things. But I love what you said about, if I want to change this space, me using these words, not using these words, how am I actually making a difference here? I'd love to hear just a little bit more about your thoughts on language usage. And I know I just get so honestly, I get really frustrated when I hear every other TikTok talking about gaslighting and narcissism when I'm like, I'm not trying to say that you're not being gaslit or that that person isn't a narcissist. We don't know. However, just because someone's mean to you doesn't mean they have narcissistic personality disorder. And just because someone maybe talked to you a little bit rudely does not mean they're making you not believe in the baseline of reality, which is what gaslighting actually is. So, yeah, a little bit
Yeah.
of a tangent, but I'd love the language piece. Yes.
Yes, language is so important, and I think that the therapication of language and it is great that so many more people are getting therapists. It is great that so many more people are questioning things, that people are learning and reading about it. I think that where the problem comes in is when people are just being exposed to this in and from people who aren't aware of the actual identifications of
Mhm.
what these are. And so then they're throwing around words, and in my experience it's often like you're saying, like the gaslighting, the narcissist, the whatever. It's labeling behavior that you don't like in a way that is putting all of the blame on someone else, and it's removing you from responsibility.
Mm.
And so it's just another way to offload those feelings of discomfort or being able to look at yourself. Now, I do think that there are absolutely instances where that is completely true. I also think that it is probably very aff validating for the person to be able to be like, "Okay, you know what? I've named this now. This is something." Like, it gives more validation to their experience, and again, so many people just need affirmation of the experience that they are having.
Yeah.
Where I think that it comes into problems is that then what do you do with that? Like, even the labels and again, I think that these are completely I have neurodivergence in our household, like all of these things, like they are real, they are true, they are widely undiagnosed, like all of that. If
All of
this
that.
is your
Yes.
experience, like absolutely, this is not me questioning. At the same time, I do think that people calling themselves OCD, people calling, like saying all of these things in ways that are like, yes, you have tendencies that are like this, or I'm depressed. Yes, there are lots of people that are. Also, you could just be feeling sad right now. That is also a possibility. Like when you sit there, and I would be really careful to notice, not even, I think, getting actual clinical diagnoses are great. I think that they are hard to come by in many instances. Um, so I think that knowing where that's going for you, but I think that noticing where and how that shows up for you. So if I'm saying that I am OCD or I have OCD tendencies, does that feel empowering in my body? Does that feel like a sense of relief? Like, oh, I have a name for this thing that I can't explain. And now I feel like somebody else might be able to understand my experience. Or does it feel disempowering? Like, oh, I have this and now I can't do anything about it because, I'm saying that I have this OCD or ADHD or whatever the things are. And noticing how it makes you feel, and not in a way of like, oh, I should feel great about it, but like, if I am having this experience, I think that labels are super important in being able to say, yes, this is exactly what I'm experiencing. This is the struggle. Like, this is the struggle that I have. And if this is why it feels so hard. And now maybe I can look at it and look for coping mechanisms. I can look for other opportunities. If I am simply stating it and like that's the end, then I would question it a little bit more and say like, do it what again, this is where I'm not a therapist because I don't just sit in that, but like, okay, and now what? Like, and what's the
Mhm.
next step? And being able to utilize, and I think earlier you were talking about integrity and how so many times the way that we use it, I think, or the way that it's been used is like, okay, well, I'm standing in integrity if I'm standing by my word. And I said that I was going to do this thing, so I'm going to show up and I'm going to do this thing. And that can be considered integrity. From an outside standpoint, that's integrity. Also, what could be integrity is that I said that I was going to do this thing, and now that feels wildly wrong in my body.
Yeah.
And so, actually, I'm in integrity if I don't do that thing. Now,
Yeah.
I may need to communicate that. May need to make amends. I may need to change something or let people know. But me just showing up and doing the things that I said that I was going to, or me just doing what's expected and what people expect of me, for me, that is not integrity. Integrity is living within who I am and being respectful of what is going on within me.
Yes. Absolutely. I so appreciate that. And I think that that shift in integrity is so vital, and it really places the onus back on, again, right back to what we're talking about, tuning into the self and coming back full circle to really where we are and letting that be your truth and speak for you over all of anything else, right? Like letting that kind of be your benchmark for what resonates and what's true. And hearing you talk about like labels and titles for things, I completely agree. In my own relationship with my mental health, when I first had titles for things and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I can now go deep dive on the internet what these things are and feel so validated and also find communities of people who have
Yes.
similar experiences and I'm not alone and I'm not crazy and all of these things." And also, now I'm like, and that's not all that I am. It's not something that's holding you back from growth. It's helpful as so long as it's helpful. And I think with any label like this, like I know that we often talk about how sexuality is a spectrum. I think mental health is absolutely a spectrum too. And labels in any of these camps, it's like being mindful that we use language to help us communicate. Language is also fallible and sometimes prevents us from communicating effectively. And it's okay to shift and change as we need to with all of this. So thank you for
Well,
sharing that.
and I think the labels themselves too change. Like the
Yeah.
DSMR changes. And there's ADHD, which was, ADD before, and it changed, and the criteria changed, and autism spectrum, and now it's a spectrum, and it has all these different ones. And like looking at it now as being like, oh, well, actually, autism and ADHD can coexist, and this isn't something that's available or updated in there. So knowing and realizing the fallibility of it too, I think is really important. And also, like, I can have these things. I can be depressed. I can have anxiety. I don't have to claim that I am these things. Like you're saying, like
Mhm.
it is not all of me. There is so much that is encompassed in me, and most times a lot of people will also have co-concurrent
Mhm.
diagnoses where there are many things, comorbidities that are going on. And none of that is going to, your experience of that is going to look vastly different than somebody else. So I
Yeah.
think that that self-identification, again, if that is giving you the ability to feel better, if it's allowing you to find community, if it's allowing you to give names to that experience, then that is so very helpful. And I think that sometimes you can be misdiagnosed by providers
Yeah.
or it can be missed too. So trusting yourself in that, I think, is also very important. And also, like, at some point, what do you want to do with that information?
Yes. Yeah, letting it be a piece of empowerment. I love. Well, I do want to be mindful of our time here. Um, So, to bring us into the closing of our conversation, firstly, in light of everything we talked about, is there anything we missed? Anything we didn't cover? Anything that you want to go back and clarify or highlight or underline or anything at all? I just want to give you space to talk about things that
I
maybe
mean, I
we
think that
haven't
we could
touched
talk
on.
about a million things. Obviously, this time has gone very fast. I just appreciate the fact that you are open and having these conversations, and I think that the different perspectives that people bring in the conversations that you have and the people that you bring on just provides so many different ways to be able to have similar conversations and to notice different people's perspectives and different people's experience and how that shows up again and how the conversations go, how the communication goes. And being able to look at and to allow for your listeners to like take what resonates from all these conversations and leave what doesn't.
Mhm.
And really just go back to what feels right. And also, like we were talking about, like this is a marker in time. So like things can change, things can evolve and to being open and curious, I think is one of the best things that people can do for themselves is just to allow themselves to continue to grow, evolve and change and to identify with the people that are bringing them up and lifting them up through that.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I so appreciate that kindness and also, I agree, and that's I feel like hopefully is the caveat on almost every episode. That is, take what works and leave the rest and let what lifts you up lift you up. For a final little, hopefully, bow on, actually, no, before we go into that, your work will be linked down below for all of our listeners. Thank you so much for taking the time and sharing your expertise with us. Please, 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 to all of our listeners, wherever you may be listening or watching, go support Christina, go support her work. She'll be linked down below. Also, if you're following us on socials, we will be tagging her across all of the marketing materials for this episode. So definitely go support and learn even more about the wonderful work Christina does. And if you're interested in working with her, all of those links will be down below as well. For hopefully putting a little bow or button on this beautifully expansive conversation we've had, what is one word to describe how you're feeling right now?
I think optimistic. I
Mm.
feel like knowing that there are people in the world that are doing the work that we're doing, knowing that there are people that are interested and working and continuing to expand and grow, and especially like the younger generations and bringing all of that in is just so heartening to me. I think a lot of times we can get bogged down in all of the negativity that's out there and all of the terrible things that are going on. And to be able to be in a space where we can shine a light on that positivity, where we can give opportunities to be able to have conversations like this, where you can dive deeper and be able to reconnect outside of all of the noise, is just so heartwarming for me. And I just feel so optimistic for what's to come for us and for the world, and to be able to be in a space where, again, both these things can exist. There are pockets of this positivity, there are pockets of this ability to be able to surround yourself with the kinds of stories, the kind of information that you want to hear.
Absolutely. I can't thank you enough again for your kind words, and I'm just so grateful for similarly the work that we do together, and knowing that we're not in this alone and that our fields intersect and we can support each other, but also just the broader world in doing this. Christina, I cannot thank you enough for your generosity of time and expertise and spirit in this episode. Thank you so very much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you all so very much for being here today. And of course, a huge, huge thank you to Christina Slaback for her time and energy during this episode and conversation. I just really so resonate with Christina as an individual. She's someone that I think our vibes are very similar. The energies we bring are very similar. And so anytime we're having a conversation, I feel like we could just talk forever about this stuff. And it's just always so reassuring to know that other people are walking this walk too, are doing this too, are having this journey too. And it's important. It's important work. And to know that people like Christina out there are doing it and supporting others in doing it, just such a comfort to me. Again, definitely give Christina a follow and check out her work. All of those links will be down below. And if you are interested in working with Christina, there will be links down below to do that as well. You can also head on over to our website, www.thecoherecollective.com, to learn more about the Making Meaning podcast and more about coherence and the mission behind everything that we do. Over there, you'll also be able to learn more about working with me to find and pursue your purpose, and explore our newsletter, which is our bi-weekly newsletter, other podcasts and content we have, and all sorts of good stuff that is going on. A big thank you to Tristan Morgan for making Meaning's theme music. You can find him on Instagram at Tristan Morgan, and a huge thank you to Nicole Ostreicher for making Meaning's art and podcast cover. You can find her on Instagram at Nicole O Creates or Nicole O Design. Right now, I am feeling just calm is the word that's coming to me. One thing I've really been working on is not how quickly I can get every single thing in my life done that I need to get done, but with how much ease and peace I can get things done. And sure, things may not be happening quite as quickly, but they are happening with more intention and with more care. And I think the end product is much better and higher quality, and also I'm not like dysregulating my nervous system to do that. And I feel like this week has been a very calm state for me because of this transition. And I feel like I've finally kind of locked in to a good zone with my self-development work and everything that I'm working on. Of course, we're constantly going through different cycles of deconstruction and reconstruction and breaking down and building back up and growth and the process and all of that good stuff. But I really feel like I'm in the juicy bits of the work and it's been really fulfilling. So I'm feeling calm. I'm feeling at peace. I'm feeling good. And I'm happy to be here with y'all. Thank you again so very much for being here. Thank you for being my absolute favorite part of making meaning and the making meaning process. And as always, I hope you feel like you are living more coherently. And until next time, love.